All right, we're live. Welcome back to the Moment Makers podcast. I've got a special guest today. I've got Steven with More Weight. I'll let him kind of explain what that is and what he does with them. We'll just jump right into it. How you doing, Steven?
And pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. So the first thing that I've been asking people that I have on is how the coronavirus has affected their daily life. Are you being quarantined? Are you still working? Do you work from home anyway? How has it affected your daily life?
It's been pretty big. So I don't know if it's that I'm quarantined. I'm definitely staying home a lot. And I'm a full-time personal trainer. I'm usually at the gym,
Yeah.
40 plus hours a week. Um, the gym's closed, so I have about 25 to 28 personal training clients, and now they're all stuck at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I specialize in powerlifting and barbell training, and so all of them are like going crazy. So I had to uh, kind of learn on the fly and like be like, all right, body weight it is, unless you have equipment. So I had to go and look at like what do I think are the best body weight exercises for my clients, put together a
Mm-hmm.
program, and now we're so some of my clients were actually meeting in some of us are meeting in a park, some of them have equipment at home and I'm going to their place. Most of them were doing this, and I'm watching them work out via webcam, which is you know,
Strange.
but it's good to learn how to do it that way, for the future. But yeah, so we're it's had a major impact, but I'm really blessed that my clients are loyal and that I haven't completely lost my income. So
Yeah.
it's difficult, but I'm in a really good place.
Well, that's awesome that you're able to still keep working from home, even though everything's kind of changed. It's a weird state we're living in right now. We've never lived through anything like this, at least in my lifetime and in the lifetimes of my parents or grandparents. So it's a strange thing that we're dealing with, and I think that mental health plays a huge role um, in that mindset of being stuck at home and not doing anything, not being occupied, and that's kind of what I like to go into from there is talking about how has it affected your mental health.
Uh, I'm not gonna lie, man, it's tough. Like to be honest, like this is my idea of hell. Um, I'm an extrovert. I
Uh-huh.
I love being around people. I have a good support network that I'm used to going and being with friends and being with family and being with clients um, and so like luckily I don't have the boredom aspect of it, but being alone and being bored are a lethal combination for me. Um, but the positive thing is that it's really pointed out some weaknesses that I can work on now. Um, I'm realizing how much unhealthy like self-talk that I have, like with all this time by myself. It's like, man, like all these really negative thoughts that just swarm my brain, and I
Yeah.
try I try to escape from with like Netflix. But if I can really sit down with those thoughts and just kind of detach from them and put them to the test and go, are these thoughts true, or am I just torturing myself? And so
Yeah.
it's tough, but if I use it as an opportunity to grow, it can be good too.
Yeah. And that's so that I've talked to a handful of people over the last couple of weeks. I've been laid off for almost 2 weeks now. I took my vacation the week before that, so I've been home for about 3 weeks, and I've been doing these podcasts, just trying to do as much content as I can and get better at interviewing and doing that kind of stuff. And the people that I've talked to that have kind of it's one of two camps that you fall into. You either allow yourself to go down a rabbit hole in the solitude and you let yourself believe a lot of stuff that's not true and you're alone with your thoughts and that's a bad thing, or you take the time to dig into what those thoughts are and kind of pull out what's not true and kind of deal with the issue at hand. So it seems like you're kind of more on that side of things where you've at least have some tools that you've learned in your time in dealing with your mental health and kind of weeding out what shouldn't be there. So that's interesting to see. Kind of going into that, who are you? What do you do? What is more weight? Give a good little bit of stuff about what more weight is, what you do with them, and how you wound up being there.
Yeah, so I found more weight actually um, 3 years ago.
Because more weight's a brand. It's like a lifting brand.
Yeah, it's like lifting and mental health like mashed together. It's like
Yep.
it's a. I'll go into it here in a second, but it's like it's it's like metal and lifting and
Yep.
mental health and all that combined in one. But yeah, so I've actually had this shirt since I became. I was just I was a brand ambassador 3 years ago. They've been around since about 2015.
Okay.
I did fact check myself, but certainly no later than that. I mean, if anything earlier, but 2017 I found them, and um, a year prior, so like in 2016, I was on my way home on my motorcycle and was T-boned by a drunk driver going about 50 miles an hour, and so I lost my leg that night, and so I'd been a power lifter since I was 14, and so all I've known is powerlifting and lifting, and it's been this huge therapy for me and a source of identity and a bunch of good things. But that night in the hospital or in the ambulance when they said I was probably gonna lose my leg, like it's like all of that has been taken away from me, and there was this moment of like real loss of hope and like, well, what's the point of life anymore? Like I'm too young for this. I was 24 at the time, uh, and so yeah, it was a really, really, really dark place. But I quickly, by the grace of God, because I believe in God and I believe that suffering happens. Suffering is not empty, it's not meaningless, it's not without point, and He doesn't orchestrate it. I don't believe God orchestrates it, but He can use it for really good things. And I believe, like, I had this moment when I was like, like I kind of have a choice here. Like the choice kind of happened over months and months and months. It evolved, but like there was this constant, moment that kept happening where it's like, am I going to choose to remain a victim? Because I was a victim, but am I going to stay a victim? Am I going to keep believing that my life is over, or am I going to do what I can with the limb that I have left and with the story that I now have? And so I kept trying to make decisions on that side of things. And long story short, with that part of the story, like 4 months after the accident, I deadlifted 435 pounds.
Oh, wow.
A year after the accident, I got second place in my first strongman competition. I tried against non-amputees. A year and a half after the accident, I deadlifted 500 pounds. And none of that's bragging. It's just like because I believed that I could get back to my old lifting numbers or try to. I pushed and I had to experiment with my prosthetic and get that adjusted, and it hurt and it was awkward and it was like trying to learn to do everything again. But the process of doing that made me more resilient. But it was, I mean, like, and none of that's like, it's a quick overview of what was a really long journey, but it wasn't, it wasn't, there were a lot of really dark moments in that. It wasn't like, you know, butterflies and unicorns and hollow positivity. It was a lot of wrestling with God and wrestling with myself and working through all that stuff. But, and then, so I found more weight. I've been an August Burns Red fan for a long time, and I got to know Jake through someone who was on the heart support team, which is Jake's nonprofit dealing solely with mental health. And when Jake told me, like, hey, we get the more weight thing. And I was like, so I looked into like what that means and what more weight is. And, you know, the name comes from a man who was killed during the Salem witch trials named Giles Corey. And he and his wife were accused of witchcraft, and they would torture you into confessing witchcraft by placing a board on your chest, loading stones onto your chest until those stones crushed you or you confessed. And he refused to renounce his faith. So every time they loaded a stone, he famously said, "More weight," you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that was his last words, "More weight." And so it's this idea that like life gets really heavy sometimes. Inevitably, life will get heavy, you know. And so, but you do have a choice there, and you know, when life gets heavy, do you just like, are you thinking, get this weight off of me, and are trying to escape, or are you going to bear up that load, even if you have help from others, because like that's really important. But are you going to bear up that load and become stronger so you're more resilient, you know, instead of giving in? And so the act of overcoming that load and becoming stronger in and of itself gives purpose and meaning and life. And so that's what we believe at More Weight, that life's meaning really comes from accepting that load and becoming stronger and not doing it alone. You know, we say all the time, we carry the weight together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I found More Weight, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's my story, you know. Like I was like,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I had to do. And you know, I did not do it alone, by the way. Like I had so much support through what happened to me. I mean, my family, my church, the gym that I work out of, like it was unbelievable it's unbelievable to look back at all the people that helped me. Like I would be a fool to say I did that on my own. And so yeah, so at the time I was a brand ambassador. I was just like trying to tell people about More Weight. I was wearing their stuff at competitions and trying to spread the word. Uh, and you know, due to some unfortunate events, More Weight had to kind of press pause for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, about July, I approached Jake again. I was like, "Hey, man, like I've been thinking a lot about you and More Weight, and I was just like, you know, where are you with that?" And um, I just kind of pitched to them like, hey, like, you know, because all, you know, at the time they were selling merch and they were spreading good, you know, good messages and reaching people. But it's just really hard to make money with just merchandise.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I don't know that side of things, but man, I know personal training, and I love the way I can help people with personal training. And so I was like, dude, what if we did personal training with More Weight? You know, if we combined, you know, what I've been doing and what y'all have been doing and turn it into something really cool. So for the past like 8 months or so, we've been working on that, and finally, you know, we're ready to move forward with that. You know, I'm, you know, one of the co-owners of More Weight, and you know, I do everything on the training side of things. You know, we're gonna have some trainers under us,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm, you know, organizing all of the personal training side of things, and that's, you know, that's our new direction. You know, is the same message, same product, same everything, but just more. Like we want to help people more. You know.
I think that's really awesome. The kind of going back to your story, um, not and I know not to the extent that you were. I had issues with my back about 3 or 4 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, where I herniated a disc, and I had pain going through my legs, and I wasn't able to do anything for almost a year.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of empathize with that side of stuff, and lifting is a huge part of my life too. I never competed or done anything, but I use that as a tool for my mental health. It's the way that I kind of decompress, and um, it's kind of my therapy, I guess, is the best way of putting it. So that's why I wanted to have you on and talk to More Weight, and kind of get their side of the story, and figure out what they do a little bit more. Um, but going back to your story, it is a very dark place that your mind goes. And I know that not to the extent that you have. I mean, I can't imagine losing a limb and trying to compete in powerlifting. I I don't know. It's such a testimony just in mental health in general. Because for you, that was your livelihood. That was your life. That's all you did: eat, sleep, lifting. And for most powerlifters, that's kind of all they do is work towards a strongman. Um, kind of end goal is being a strongman and that kind of stuff. Um, so I can imagine when that happened that it really did. It probably ruined you for a short period of time. Um, how through that experience, what was the most important thing keeping your positivity and not allowing yourself to go down the deep, dark paths of what your mind could tell you is a reality?
Yeah, I mean, a few different things. I mean, first and foremost, my faith. I mean, this is not like, I mean, I've had some ups and downs in my faith, and um, that's been a struggle as well. But like having an anchor that is not rooted to like, because like if my identity is 100% in my physical abilities, that can be taken away in 5 seconds. If
Mm-hmm.
my identity is 100% in my reputation as a fill in the blank, anything that is based on what other people think of me, that can be taken away in an instant. You know, like it, and a lot of my identity, enough of my identity was wrapped up in my physical ability that it was really crushing for a while. But I have to constantly like ask myself, like, ultimately, what matters the most? Because in the grand scheme of things, what I can lift at the gym is like, it's a really good thing. Like that's an extremely worthwhile goal, but like it's not ultimate. It's not something that can actually satisfy my soul in the darkest hour. And so at the end of the day, that God's the only one that can do that for me. And so it's really easy to get distracted from that. But that, I would say that's number one. And just who am I in Christ, ultimately, because that's the only thing that's going to stand the test, you know. And so I'd say secondarily, like, I hope you're not hearing that. Someone's blowing up my phone right now. Um, so secondarily, I would say having 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 the goal of getting, how much can I accomplish with a missing limb, like, just this, it was almost like starting over in a way. It's like I already knew how to lift, but it was like a whole different thing. So it was almost like, all right, like, don't compare yourself to where you used to be. This is a clean slate. I'm kind of in some ways working out for the first time in new ways. And so just finding joy and just like, man, and I'm such a gym rat. Like I only took like two weeks off. Like I was in the hospital for a week. I was super high on drugs for about a week, and then on pain medication. But and then probably only 2 or 3 weeks after the accident, I was like, I gotta get out of the house. Someone take me to the gym. So I'm in my wheelchair, getting around the gym and just doing upper body stuff. I even did some leg press with my good leg, and just going, you know what, like right now in this moment, I can still do stuff. Like, there's stuff I can't control right now. Like I can't control that. I can't do what I used to could do. What can I do right now? Well, I can do bench. I can do seated rows. I can do leg press. I can do all these things. And guess what? I'm not paralyzed. I could have been
Yeah.
so much worse off, And so aiming towards stuff that I can get better at kept me really healthier than I would have otherwise been. Uh, Reading, I read a lot of really good personal development books that gave me a lot of like paradigm shifts, like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Straight Edge, Extreme Ownership, Atomic Habits, a lot of things that showed me that I had this like untapped potential, that if I just had got some better systems in place, I could do a lot more than I was doing. And so just constantly I found that like I need to constantly be in a book of that nature, because it's just like exercising the muscle of I am constantly working on my mind and my mindset. And just if I relax on that discipline, if I stop reading, I start to relax on things without even realizing it, relaxing on disciplines that I had in place. And so, um, stuff like that. And then, and then of course having people around me, like I couldn't imagine going through that alone. Like I had my family, I had so many friends coming to visit me and taking me places because I lost my driving foot, because I couldn't drive for a while at least. So that community was everything.
That's, I think so. From my perspective, it seems like lifting is a catalyst for a lot of people's confidence and kind of self-discipline. It takes a lot of self-discipline, especially to be a power lifter and kind of hit those targets and lift heavy amounts of weight. Do you think lifting prior to your accident that it kind of helped you keep that mindset and that positive, I'm in control of this. This does not control me. This will not change the way that I am. I'm going to do everything I can to keep doing what I have to do to be the best version of myself.
I would say absolutely. I mean, I probably that 2 or 3 weeks that I took off, that was the longest period of time I had not lifted since before seventh grade. Like,
Gotcha.
I I fell in love with lifting it, and it's just been this constant in my life. And I mean, first of all, I think I would have been injured far worse if my body wasn't as strong. Um,
Hmm.
there were literally no other injuries whatsoever. Um, but and then like having that thing that I mean, that was such a discipline. It's like, like, you don't wake up and think, oh yeah, I need to start breathing. Okay, now I'm breathing and I need to take
Yep.
another breath. Like you just do it. And so having this thing in my life that I just do, and I can't imagine not doing it. I could just get right back into that routine. Uh, and, and yeah, just like it just kept that momentum going. And then of course, like, every time I lift, uh, you get this really nice just endorphin rush, and
Hmm.
it's like, if you haven't lifted before, it's like it almost sounds like psychotic to talk about it in this way, but it's intoxicating. It's like if you're having a really bad day and you go and get a pump at the gym, like, oh man, it just like you're just like, you know what, like life's actually really darn good right now.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and so it's like it's gotten me through a lot of dark days when I'm like, you know what, I just need to go hit the gym, and then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what, yeah, that situation's not as bad as I thought it was. So yeah, I mean it, and then just being used to, and of course they're, you know, uh, relatively silly to think about, but barriers such as, oh, my deadlift has hit a plateau, or oh man, like I can't hit this number, and then pushing, finally hitting. That just the act of doing that sort of thing for years, and now it's like, all right, well, here's another barrier. Here we go.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've had injuries, my lifting related injuries along the way, where I'm like, well, my knee's jacked up, well, my back's jacked up, well, my elbow's jacked up,
So
and
it
so
was
going.
just another challenge to overcome, more or
I mean,
less.
exponentially worse, but the same sort of thing where it's like, and I mean, it's one of the few good things that come from social media. I mean, it's a great tool, but um, I looked up and saw that, man, there's a lot of other amputees out there that are lifting, and I saw all these other guys doing what I wanted to be doing, and so like, you know what, yeah, like uh, absolutely no reason to feel sorry for myself right now. Like, and some of them lost their limbs in war
Hmm.
and had dozens of surgeries and complications left and right just getting their limb to work, and they're still lifting. And
Yep.
relative to that, my experience is so much easier. And so I'm like, you know what? Like, I have no right to sit here and feel sorry for myself and keep that from my forward progress. If this guy can do it, like, I have no excuse. And
Yeah.
uh, so I mean, not that I don't think it's good to go around comparing yourself to others, but like looking at what other people have gone through as an uplifting thing, like yeah, like I can do that.
How so just to kind of have some idea, how difficult is it to for example deadlift, having an amputee leg?
It depends on the amputation. For me, it's not bad at all because I'm a below the knee amputee. So,
Okay.
so I have my knee still, and I'm basically missing my foot plus 4 inches. Um,
Okay.
and so I still have, you know, my calf muscle, my tibialis anterior. I still have, that meaty part of the lower part of my leg, and so
Gotcha.
being able to have if you don't have a knee, if you're above the knee, and I know
Hmm.
of the knee amputees who are lifters as well, and but it's a whole different thing. I mean, it's like if I were to walk up to an above the knee amputee and go, "Yeah, man, like I feel your pain," it's like more so than someone who has all their limbs, but it's so different. Like, so anyway, so for deadlift, you're in deadlift, you don't have a lot of knee flexion. Your knee's not bent
Hmm.
a lot. So it's going to be a lot more like hips and back.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but I mean, my technique was awful at first because I used to deadlift sumo uh,
Gotcha.
exclusively, and so now I had to relearn conventional with my feet at hip width, not way wider than that. And so, with that new stance, I had to get my mechanics right and actually post it on Instagram before and after, like uh, when I first started getting back into it, and then like last year, and I was like, dude, like my form was so bad at first, but, uh, I was like, it's cringeworthy. I'm looking at my back rounding, and I'm like, oh, that's gross. But I did what I could do, and then um, I honed it and I honed it and I honed it, and now I'm really good at conventional, and uh, but deadlift was the easiest thing to get back into. Squats was a whole different ball game.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's so going into this episode, I didn't know anything about you being an amputee. I kind of just shot my shot with more weight and said, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you guys. I love what the company stands for, having the lifting mental health background, and it's really awesome your story, and I think it's very motivational for a lot of people that are in less life threatening situations."
Yeah.
Not to put it lightly, but it so much of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis is very minor compared to what other people are going through. Not to compare people to people, but once you get into a mindset, and I think that's why I love lifting so much, is because you kind of take control of what you want to do. If you're bulking, if you're cutting, or if you're wanting to hit numbers for powerlifting, you can control every aspect of that. You change certain aspects, if it's your diet, if it's the routine that you're doing, or if it's the way you're doing your routine, or whatever it is, you can change certain aspects to help you achieve the goals that you're wanting to. And I think that's why I kind of gravitate towards lifting so much, is not just the therapy aspect of it, but the control aspect of it. Because
Mm.
you really can choose how you want to do what you want to do. And it's really cool that you were able to kind of latch on to more weight and identify with that, and wind up becoming a partial owner of the company, and kind of taking it by the reins, and doing what you do with it. Can you talk a little bit more about the personal training side of stuff? That's you said that's a new aspect to it. When I latched on to more weight, it was probably back in 2015.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think is when it was when they first started, because I followed Jake Lurs pretty heavily. for a while, and heart support was a thing that I latched onto, just having my own company and everything. Um, so when he brought up more weight, I was all over it, and um, I don't know if it's Instagram's algorithm, but I hadn't seen anything from them in quite some time, and knowing that they went through a little hiatus, it makes sense. Um, but can you talk a little bit more about that side of stuff and the personal training side, where it's a new thing? How are you guys doing it? What does it depend on what your goals are, how much it costs, and all that?
Yeah, so to put a pin in that for just a second, I wanted to just couldn't get this off my mind. I people like to go back to something you said a second ago.
Yeah.
People all the time are like, oh, not that it's anything compared to what you've gone through. Oh, like what I've gone through is nothing compared. And I always stop people. I'm like, look, like pain is relative.
Yeah.
Like there's there's people who've been through, like, on the extreme side of things. There's people who've had mega cushy lives, and they go around complaining about the tiniest thing, like, dude, my Wi-Fi just won't work, my life sucks. It's like, or whatever, just to come up with an example. But like for the most part, like, you can't quantify it. Like, you can't,
Hmm.
like, oh well, you had this disease, or you lost a second cousin to an accident, and I lost this part of my body. Like, there's no way to put numbers on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, and you can't, like, what the pain people feel, despite on the outside what it may look like, could be so much more intense than what anybody else sees. Like, I've been dealing with depression since I was a kid, and it's this invisible, horrible, really intense thing that goes on in your mind, and no one else can see it. And when you describe it to people, you're like, there's no words to really put to it. So you describe it, and you're like, like, that sounds so weak. That sounds like such a small thing. Like,
Yeah.
how do I get this person to understand what I'm feeling right now? Because it's insanely difficult. So I just want to say that, like, no matter what you're going through, like, it's relevant and it matters, and it doesn't, like, don't compare yourself to others in terms of, like, they've gone through worse, so I need to suck it up.
Yeah.
So just to be
Well,
real
and
clear
I
about.
appreciate you. I appreciate you clarifying that, and that wasn't my intent, was to demean
Sure.
anybody else based on what you were going through. Everything is relative, just like what you said. One person's, we could go through the same exact thing, but our life experience and our ability to handle certain things are completely different. We're two different people, even though we're going through the same thing. We handle it a lot different,
Right.
and that is a very good point to make, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so with the personal training, so yeah, we have a few different ways you can interact with us on personal training. But um, uh, we want there to be ways for you to get value from more weight, regardless of where you're at budget wise. Like, we're gonna be posting on social media, things dealing with, um, personal development, mental health, exercise tips, stuff that,
mhm.
like, we're going to be giving tips that we're going to give to people that are paying for personal training sessions. Like, we don't have, like, exclusive information that, it's like, you do a 30-second video and you're like, to get the full information, credit card
Yeah.
information here. It's like, uh, you will get more out of a training session because you get that hands-on, like, personal one-on-one thing. But we're gonna try and take anything that is like, hey, like, what's the most common mistakes on this exercise that we know people are dealing with based on the clients that I've trained. Okay, now let's tell everybody about it. Okay, like um here's what my clients have experienced in this lift. Here's, if you go to the gym right now and you apply these to your lift, you will get better at that lift. And so, assuming that you really absorb the information and apply it and have any kind of body awareness to really make those things happen, we want to allow everyone to have access to that type of information. Some other ways to get involved would be like uh, team coaching, team online coaching. So, like, let's say there's 10 different people who are brand new to lifting weights, or they've been doing it for a little bit of time, but they know they want to get into powerlifting. They want to do squat, they want to do bench, they want to do deadlift, they want to do barbell stuff. And they're, roughly the same experience level, same injury level. Let's say they have no injuries or, nothing above like kind of a moderate thing. And so they're, roughly the, same goals, same type of, experience level. And we go, okay, let's put you on a team together with Kelsey, our trainer here at More Weight, and she's going to design you a program for those goals to be that will fit all of y'all as best as possible, which obviously wouldn't be as optimal as like for you personally.
Yeah.
But like it's really darn close. And then we use this app called Train Heroic, and it's this really nice. It's not our app, but we pay for it, and we can put the exercises on there with our videos demonstrating. We can program everything. We can put instructions on there from the coaches, and we can go like, here's your program. When you're ready to work out, pull it up, sign in, boom, your workout's there on the calendar. Click go. You have squats first. Oh wait, how do I do that one thing? Oh, there's the video. Let me click on the video, watch the video, type in my weights, type in my reps. It calculates the volume. At the end of it, I can add some notes from my coach. Hey, this felt kind of funny, or this was, I didn't quite get this. And then we all have a team chat in that app. And I can go, hey guys, day one of the program, hope y'all ready. Here's some stuff to keep in mind. And then later someone pops in and goes, man, hardcore workout, felt great. And someone else comes in and goes, it was good, but like I was struggling with this. What do you think, coach? And they can post a video of their lift on that chat, and I can look at it and go, oh, great job, Thomas, but I would work on bracing harder in your midsection before going down. Make sure your knees don't collapse on the way up, and give that kind of tip. So we can communicate in that chat room environment and encourage each other. Everyone can communicate with everyone and go, great PR, man. Like I know you've been working towards that for a while. And so you have that community of people who have the same program and the same coach and the same goals and can push each other. And so that's a really cool way to get involved. That'd be like, I don't know if I call it entry level, but that's a low barrier to entry to get some really high value stuff. And so yeah, I could pause there if you have any questions on that one.
Hey, so just one thing that I'd like to mention with that, I think a huge benefit of that program in itself, especially for people that are using lifting as a way to take control of their mental health and kind of use it as a therapy, is that you have the community aspect. And that's one thing with lifting that I've always enjoyed, is the community of it. Because you have a lot of like-minded individuals that are kind of pushing for the same or similar goals, that know what it takes to get to where you are or where you're going. And I think having that community of people, just a positive influence of people surrounding your mental health is always a good thing. But having people that know what you're going through and can kind of give you pointers and help you with the encouragement side of things, just knowing what you're doing is right and that you're doing a good job is always a huge mood boost. But not just that, but with your mental health, it helps kind of keep you in a positive mindset too. And I think that's a huge benefit of that program, even being an entry level program for people that are looking to get both the benefits of like the therapy side of mental health, but of lifting, but with the kind of community aspect of it. That's a huge help in both aspects. So
yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's for any fitness level, but each group is geared towards a particular fitness level and a particular goal. So you may have beginner powerlifters over here, and you may have like beginners weight loss over here. Everyone's trying to lose a certain number of pounds, or like beginners strongman, or intermediate or advanced powerlifting, or just general strength. Like they don't want to compete, but they just want to get stronger mentally. They want to get stronger physically, and each group can kind of have their own niche and things that they have in common. And what we really want is if we can get people on a team like that are like within a 2 or 3 hour radius tops, or even an hour radius, and once life is back to normal, they
Yeah.
can once a month they could like, hey, let's do a team workout, let's go to the same gym and lift together. That would be like the ultimate. So that's some really cool stuff to look forward to on that.
That's really cool. I really appreciate having you on and you taking the time to go through some of your story and kind of some of the company that you're a part of and kind of what you're doing with all that. Um, Before I do the last few questions to kind of close us out, did you have anything else that you wanted to add or mention before we kind of start closing out?
So we have a couple more things we offer for personal training. Just a quick overview. We have
Hmm.
online personal programming, where it's just I'm programming for you for your goals based
Cool.
on your needs, and it's just me and you. Uh, we would do like an intro call like this. I get to know you a little bit. I design your program, and we'll have like a once a month call like this, uh, and I'll give you feedback on your videos on the app. But it's that guided programming. That's like the next step up, and then a step above that would be virtual coaching. So like we do one-on-one hour-long sessions via Skype or Zoom or FaceTime, and I watch you lift, and think of it as a in-person training session, but over the FaceTime, and so I can
Cool.
give you real-time feedback on your form, uh, and real-time encouragement, real-time advice, and so it's like personal training online in that regard. And then once things get back to normal, in Austin, Texas, we'll have in-person training.
Very cool.
But
That's I think that's really awesome what you guys are doing as far as the personal training side because there's a lot of influencers that do their own programs, but there's not a lot of like mental health attached to that or the emphasis of what lifting is with mental health. And I think kind of combining the two is a market that's not a market, but an avenue that's not tapped into, kind of associating the two things together. So I think that's awesome what you guys are doing with that and kind of shifting gears as far as the branding and the company goes. So um, to kind of close us out, what is your self care kind of mental health routine? What are some things that you do to kind of keep your health in check?
yeah, so I've toyed with a bunch of different like habits and systems and stuff, but like um, there's a few just absolutely vital things for mental health. And I'm no mental health professional, but if you ask, they'll agree with most of this. I think sleep is number one. Like, and I struggle with that, but like getting into a rhythm of this is when I go to bed and this is when I wake up. And even if you don't have to wake up, like, which is right now for a lot of people the hard part, and so they
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to get up and get to work, so their sleep schedule's off, and that can really mess with your mental health. And so
Yeah.
like first and foremost, I go to bed at this time, I wake up at this time, and making sure it's enough sleep, and um, just good sleep hygiene, and relating to like not staring at your phone before you go to bed and things that'll
Hmm.
disrupt your sleep. And then when I wake up, um, I right now it's a small amount of time because my attention span can be kind of crap, but like reading the word and praying. I recently started consistently journaling. Um, and like I found this book that talks about doing morning pages. And so I have this journal, that like the lines are actually pretty, far apart. Like it's not,
Hmm.
it doesn't take much to fill up one page, and I'll do 3 pages a morning, and it could be anything, like just just rambling about nonsense. It's just a way to just kind of get anything out of there that I need to. Like man, like I'm just not feeling it this morning. Like
Hmm.
like woke up and for some reason I'm just like I want to go back to bed. I don't want to do work. I don't want to whatever. Just like write it down and get it out there, and then you can confront your self-talk. You can do your to-do list. You can pray, like whatever. Just write for that 3 pages, and doing that's really helping. Um, uh, Reading personal development books, like I mentioned, like right now, I'm revisiting Atomic Habits because it's. I realize I can get to a pattern of just consuming the information and not applying it. And I think like applying it is where the rubber meets the road. It's like that's the most important thing. So I'm revisiting a book that I really enjoyed to make sure that I'm actually implementing what he talks about, and lifting weights. And so right now it's body weight, but you know what? I'm like, how can I get a pump today just to make sure I don't let that discipline, fade away.
Yeah.
Those are the big ones for me.
One more thing that I do want to kind of mention too, the last couple guests that we've had have been friends of mine that have grown up in church together, and they've kind of fallen away from their faith, and their faith isn't something that they use as a tool for their mental health, but it was something that made them who they are. It seems like you're kind of the opposite of that your faith is a big part of what your mental health, how it kind of stays in check, and what you um, how you kind of keep your positive mindset and keep going. And I just want to mention that it's interesting the different perspectives that people have in their lives, and that for one person their faith is a huge part of how they keep their mental health in check, and for some people it's not even a thought. Can you touch a little bit more on kind of your faith and how that's a tool for you?
Yeah, I mean, the part that is so important to me is the unconditional aspect of it. And so like a lot of that negative self-talk I mentioned is like that voice, whatever that voice is telling me I suck, I'm a failure, I'm not worthy of love. Like even when it comes to my faith, that voice is telling me like God doesn't love you. Like you've done all these horrible things, you have these horrible thoughts, you've done that thing that you hate one too many times and it's unforgivable now. Uh, Guilt, shame, that kind of stuff. And so when I really look at, okay, well that's what my thoughts are telling me, but what does the Bible say about God's love for me? And it's like, okay, well, if you are a believer, if you do believe that Jesus died for you and that he, that sacrifice is what saves you, then it was never me and my goodness that saved me. And so I keep having to remind myself that like it's not God doesn't love me when I'm good because my goodness is what saved me. It's like he saved me when I was separated from him and a wicked, horrible human being, and that wicked, horrible human being is still there. It's like I'm still broken, but his love for me was never predicated on performance. And so I can always sit down and say, like, even when I've had just a day where I'm ashamed of, like, that love for me hasn't changed. And so that's the most powerful part of it for me is like, there's nothing I can do to separate his love for me. And sometimes I don't feel that. Sometimes I feel like, nah, there's no way, like not today. Like I've crossed the line too many times, but I believe and I trust that salvation is intact regardless of how much I kind of screw it up that day. And so that's the part of it for me that like is just really powerful and has so much hope instilled in it.
Well, and I think that's what for people that have deconstructed and that are kind of reconstructing their faith, that's the thing that they hold on to is the hope that Christ offers. And well, we're not a Christian podcast, and the brand's not a Christian brand. I have those beliefs myself, and that's something that I obviously bring into what I do, and that for me is what still is true. At least the morals of what I have and who I am is that there's always hope, it doesn't matter what you're going through, who you are, where you're at. There's always hope for better. So that's the mindset that I have as far as everything that I go into, and it seems like you have a lot of that same mentality when you go through life. Is just there's always a way to get better, and there's always hope. So, well, I really appreciate your time and being on this episode with me. Um, Anything else that you want to mention before we close out?
I mean, I think that's about it, man. I just like if you're I just want to say it's okay to not be okay. You know, like it's okay to have something going on and you feel like I don't have my stuff together because really none of us do. There's we can put on a facade that says we have it all together, but if you're struggling, like come hit us up. DM us, comment on stuff, like reach out to us if you want to talk to about something. We mentioned heart support. Heart support deals exclusively with mental health. So more weight, heart support, counseling. I do online counseling, by the way. I have an online counselor through BetterHelp. You can actually get through heart support a free week of BetterHelp, and it's
Oh, very cool.
it's counseling online like we're talking right now. And so don't pretend like you have to do it alone is what I would say.
That's really cool. We with our website actually just put a link to resources for people, and BetterHelp was one of those resources. So
Nice.
that's really cool. Well, I appreciate your time and being on the episode. For the listeners that are listening, if you go to the website, use COVID-19 for 19% off your purchase with Sparrow Cloth. We're doing that just because our printing providers are slow with putting out orders, depending on where they're at, and they have no order or no shipping orders right now with certain states. So go on and do that. Steven, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
All right, thanks, Brennan.